Welcome to Into the Night. I'm Nari, your guide on today's excursion down a twisted path. Be careful not to get lost. Be it dark or light, it's easy to lose your way. Are you ready? Then let's begin. Old Lace and Bittersweet Tea. Late afternoon shadows spread across the room, playing tricks with the old woman's eyes. She knew they were nothing more than imaginings from her tired memory, but she was drawn to watch them, as though somehow they'd become real, if only she watched them more closely. She rubbed her knobby hands together, anxiety from long ago expressing itself even now. Time is cruel, however, and nothing she did would change the past. She knew that fretting over the mistakes of her youth achieved no rewards, but she found herself spending countless hours doing just that. The sadness in her demanded that she try to find some remedy, fruitless as it may be. Lizzie turned toward the window and stared at the hills in the distance. This is home. It will always be home. It just should have been so much more. Years slipped away as she daydreamed about the life she lived, and the one she wished she'd lived. All it would have taken was a different step, this way or that way, and I wouldn't be where I am now, lonely and feeble, with no one left to share even my memories with. Her lashes batted away teardrops, and her breath shuddered. In her mind, she saw the young Lizzie, brash and full of herself, indifferent to the consequences of her actions. She never intended to hurt anyone. At least, that's how she would like to remember herself. In moments of clarity, however, she had to accept that she was not a kind person. Selfish and self-absorbed, she believed she was entitled to whatever she wanted. Beauty and a deceitful mind helped her achieve her desires. However, her efforts only brought what appeared to be a perfect life. She knew better, and now she had nothing but time and loneliness to contemplate her deeds. On the dresser sat a photograph of herself from years gone by. Her violet eyes studied the face within the ornate metal frame. Her youthful chin cocked upward slightly to reveal the arrogance Lily once possessed. Her hair was coiffed into a bun, and the Victorian-style hat she wore upon her head looked almost too large for a girl of her thin nature. Still, she insisted on wearing it because, as she told her mother, it made her look like a lady. I was all of 20 then. What would she think of me now? Would she be horrified by my appearance now? My hands are disfigured and my back is stooped. My hair is thin and gray, and if I turned heads at all today, it wouldn't be for my beauty. Pity, maybe, but not because of my beauty. The young woman in the photograph already had her plan in mind. She knew what she wanted, and she knew what she had to do in order to get it. Was it jealousy or simply self-indulgence that led her to have the one man she, by all counts of decency, shouldn't have sought? Even after all these years, Lizzie wasn't sure of the answer. No one would argue that Thomas Granbury was a man to be desired. Tall, handsome, and full of mischief and enthusiasm. He was what they called a real catch. Lizzie was only mildly intrigued by him at first. She had plenty of suitors, and as her mother's favorite, she saw no reason to pursue a man who didn't pursue her first. After all, as her mother said, "Lizzie, you are a prize. Always remember that any man would be lucky to have you." Lizzie's younger sister, Minnie, was not so fortunate. Now, Minnie was as beautiful as her sister, But she lacked the drive and confidence Lizzie carried. Perhaps that's why their mother favored her older daughter. Minnie is just too much like your father, and she will never achieve the great life you have in store for you. Lizzie's mother crooned whenever Lizzie needed reassurance. Your father dotes on Minnie because he sees himself in her. But you are my crowning achievement. Lizzie, following the advice of her mother, behaved as though she was superior to all others, including her sister. The damage that inflicted on their relationship rippled throughout the rest of their lives. It's true. Minnie stayed in the shadows and seldom wanted attention drawn to her. I, on the other hand, thrived on being the girl everyone noticed. Mother thrived on making sure I was in the spotlight. Looking back now, I know that Mother must have suffered her own pains and losses. Otherwise, she wouldn't have clung to me so tightly. I was her baby doll from the time I was born, and she wanted me to fulfill all her expectations. I hated her for that for years. But now, I know she was doing the best she could. Whatever was lacking inside her brought many destructive consequences. Lizzie, usually too busy with her own social life, remembered the day Minnie rushed through the door, breathless with excitement. What has you so emotional? Lizzie, promise me you won't say a word to anyone. Not yet, anyway. I promise. Thomas is asking Papa for my hand in marriage. I'm going to be Mrs. Thomas Granbury. Oh, well, isn't that a little sudden? No, silly. Thomas and I have dated for nearly a year. Has it been that long already? It has. I've dreamed of this day happening. I see. Thomas is going to ask Papa right now. I have a wedding to plan. I do hope you'll help me, won't you? Certainly. Of course I will. Minnie ran from the room and went upstairs to look through her hope chest. In her excitement, she missed the look on Lizzie's face that she'd only poorly disguised. Minnie had every reason to be wrapped up in her own happiness. I couldn't stand the fact that everyone suddenly thought she was special. It was then that Lizzie knew what she had to do. That evening, having received Minnie's father's blessing, Thomas Granbury came to dinner. For the first time, Lizzie took notice of the attractive young man. To her chagrin, despite her best efforts, Thomas only saw Minnie. How dare he? No matter what I say or do, he ignores me? Lizzie desperately tried to hide her anger. She knew that wasn't the way she would wheedle her way between Thomas and her sister. She needed to pretend to be as sweet as her sister, and that was a task in and of itself. Regardless of how interested she seemed in conversation with Thomas, however, he treated her with nothing but cordial regard. That evening ended with Thomas and Minnie taking a ride through the countryside. I'm not sure how to say this, Minnie, but your sister seemed like she was trying a little too hard to be noticed tonight. Is this how she is all the time? Oh, yes. She's always been the center of every social gathering, and Mother encourages it. I've always known that my place wasn't in the limelight. Thomas leaned back and looked at her. Don't ever say something like that again, Minnie. You are the center of my world, and nothing will ever change that. You're wonderful, and it's a shame that your mother doesn't see that focusing on Lizzie alone does nothing but hurt both of you. Hurt both of us? How is Lizzie hurt by Mother's behavior? She gets everything she ever wants. That may be, but Do you think that in the end, Lizzie is becoming a better person because of your mother's favoritism? Because she's not. That kind of lopsided parenting only leads to heartache. Just watch and see. He paused and looked at the stars. Tonight, however, is about you and us, and we aren't going to spend another minute talking about your sister or anyone else. The next several months, Minnie and Thomas were happier than they'd ever been, and Lizzie became angrier than she'd ever been. The local tailor made Minnie's wedding gown, and it was a work of art. Airy, flowing, chaste, and lacy. It was the type of dress every girl dreams of for her wedding day. I must do something to stop this. This wedding is in a matter of weeks. Even Mother has been paying more attention to Minnie than she has me. Lizzie paced the floor of her bedroom as the late afternoon shadows gave way to the glowing hues of sunset that streamed through the window. Those very same shadows landed on the very dress she'd been thinking of. It hung in the corner of the room, a constant reminder of that fateful night. A pang of melancholy washed over her, but she knew that no amount of tears could undo the devastation she caused in all their lives. I was foolish and terrible. Looking back, I not only destroyed their lives, but I confined myself to a life of misery, too. That night was a blur of emotions and regret. The lie she told Thomas that she needed his help began the chain of events that she set in motion. She offered him a drink of sweet tea with a generous dose of alcohol added, just to thank him, of course, for his help. Thomas Granbury, however, was not known to hold his liquor well. Within an hour or two of Lizzie plying him with endless drinks, he reached the blackout point. Her plan was working perfectly. She guided him into bed. Thank you, Minnie. I've missed you tonight. I'm so glad you're here with me now. Of course, my love. I'm here to take care of you. From there, she continued to pretend she was Minnie. Lizzie used to her advantage the many similarities that they shared. The next morning, Thomas awoke in bed next to Lizzie. Oh, God, no! This can't be happening. But Thomas, it's true. You took advantage of me last night. I wasn't able to fight you off. I'm ruined. My reputation is ruined. Thomas retched, both from the alcohol and from the realization of what had occurred. You've ruined me, Thomas. I only hope that you will do the honorable thing and marry me. She looked at him resolutely, as though he had no other option. Within an hour, her mother made the same demand. Looking at Minnie's wedding dress, their mother said, At least you're the same size as your sister, so you will still have a beautiful dress, even under these circumstances. Minnie was inconsolable. Lizzie stared at the dress in the corner as the sunset faded and only darkness remained outside. Minnie never married, and I'm to blame for that. Yes, Thomas was my husband, and yes, we had 2 daughters. But we did not have a happy marriage. I stole the possibility of happiness from all of us. Perhaps there was a man I was supposed to meet, but instead I was trapped in a shell of a life. She wept for all of them. I can't blame Minnie and Thomas. They were always in love with each other. Did they commit a sin? The sin of continuing their affair in later years? Yes, they did, but it's understandable. I kept them apart, but their love drew them together. Sweet little Addie was the product of that affair. I know Thomas and Minnie faced scorn for what they did, but I was the one to blame. They should have been married, not me. Lizzie wept. No one heard her cries, and if they did, they chalked it up to creaking stairs or the settling of an old home filled with history. The lives of 3 people were destroyed in that house. In death, however, only one remained trapped in the past. Thomas and Minnie were reunited, and they had eternity together now. But Lizzie faced a different fate. She was forever trapped in the house, where her jealousy and self-centered ways destroyed the very people she should have protected. Lizzie stood at the window and watched the moonlight pouring down. Its glow made her ethereal body even more translucent. In life, she may have had Thomas Granbury, but in death, Lizzie Granbury had no one. Now she was nothing more than a lonely spirit, left in this realm to relive her heartaches and trespasses. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Into the Night Anthology podcast. Written by Caroline Giamanco, narrated by Nari. Theme music by Nico Rodriguez. All other original music, sound design, and editing by Omenhawk Studios. You can find our links in the show notes. Into the Night is on your favorite podcatcher, so make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review to help other excursionists to join us. I'll see you next time. And remember, whether in the shadows or in the daylight, all twisted paths lead you into the night. Into the Night Anthology is a Creative Typo Entertainment production.
If you had to pick just one thing to entertain you for the rest of your life, what would you choose? Creative Typo Entertainment is a storytelling network of renowned indie creators with decades of experience dedicated to helping you answer that question. Do you have an affinity for cosmic horror, role-playing, and entrancing yet mysterious storytelling? Check out our actual play D&D podcast, Microphones and Monsters, and easy-to-binge 30 to 45-minute episodes. And if that piqued your interest, be sure to check out the spin-off of Microphones and Monsters, DreadTech Inc., for a fast-paced, action-packed, dystopian horror real-play D&D story. Or maybe pop culture puns are more your style. A Fool's Quest is a D&D role-playing comedy podcast. Each episode is under an hour, so you can keep up with the heroes and the villains in this gut-busting, slapstick story with deep lore. And for something a little more serious, with much mystery and many suspenseful moments built in the same world as A Fool's Quest, check out the spin-off, Ethereal Embrace. Or maybe audio dramas are more your speed. Check out Stick Shift Incorporated, a serial drama about life, death, and capitalism, set in a fictional version of modern-day Vancouver, British Columbia. Do you want your stories in smaller bites? Check out Into the Night, an anthology podcast. Each story in this thrilling and twisted anthology explores the unexpected and leaves you yearning for more, all in around 10 to 15 minutes per episode. Or our newest audio drama follows Emily, who might be the cause of the end of humanity. Emily is an anomaly, chaos incarnate. In this story, Emily twists and turns between the lines, trying to figure out who her friends are, who is trying to manipulate her, and who is trying to kill her as she tries to uncover the truth about what is happening to her. And if you enjoy watching your stories live, join us on Creative Typo's Twitch channel for a dark and winding campaign adventure through fantastical worlds like A Cursed Kingdom and the Fey Realms in Elder Brain's Crown of the Oathbreaker. Find all this and more at creativetypo.com.